It's time to go beyond the headlines, cause I don't put in overtime just so I can headline. Okay, now it's Fox Sports, I'm live with Renee. Going hard every day, sports rapping every play. Different segments for your favorites, coming at you daily with positive vibes. Yeah, we some game changers. Basketball, football, soccer, with different interviews, you never know who may pop up. Listen, only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines. Only on Beyond the Headlines. This is Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington.
It is time for our positive vibes only segment here on Beyond the Headlines with Renee Washington. And joining us from out of New York, we've got Dr. Jake Deutsch. He is the clinical director and co-founder of Specialty Infusion Centers, doing groundbreaking things in the medical field. Dr. Jake Deutsch, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here for our Positive Vibes Only segment.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm all about positive vibes, so I think we have a lot in common.
Perfect. Well, I love the work that you're doing, and something that stuck out to me is IV therapy is something I don't think a lot of people really understand and really know. So I'm excited to have you here to really break it down for us on how it can be beneficial and medically and in the wellness field as well. So Let's backtrack a little. Tell us about your work with infusion treatment services and centers around the New York area.
So there is a little bit of explaining that's necessary because we're sort of starting the entire model for the medical outpatient infusion option. So traditionally, people have had therapeutic infusions in the hospital setting in inpatient infusion centers. And these are taking care of patients that have oncologic diseases like cancers, as well as other chronic diseases such as MS. And we started outpatient infusion centers in order to accommodate patients who didn't need to be in the hospital, and also sort of reacting to what was necessary based on the insurance reimbursement for a lot of the treatments. So if you can think about it, it's like what colonoscopy or orthopedic procedures have moved to in the last 20 years. You used to go to the hospital to get a colonoscopy, and now you go to an outpatient GI center, or for your knee repair, you would have predominantly have gone to the hospital for a arthroscopy, which is a minor procedure, but now you go to outpatient surgical suites. So we've taken infusion and moved it into the outpatient arena, which in medicine, everything in the last 15 years has been moving to the outpatient option because hospital-based procedures and treatment is very expensive. So we provide services that are equivalent to the hospital for patients that are extremely comfortable, and then make it much more affordable for the patients vis-a-vis through their insurance reimbursement. So what we treat primarily is disease states that are consistent for chronic inflammation, so multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's and colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, but the list is really quite large because many diseases like asthma or even some dermatologic diseases are just states of inflammation. So we actually administer the medications that are prescribed through their specialists, whether it's a gastroenterologist or a rheumatologist or a neurologist who is treating these patients with this specific type of medication.
Wow. So this just gets better because my brother actually has Crohn's disease and has had it has had it since he was 5 years old. He's 21 years old now. And I just remember growing up that there was not a lot of treatment for him. You know, a lot of his treatment was around 5, 6, 7 day stays at CHOP Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, because there wasn't, and I mean, for him, the medication he was taking, the infusion treatment had to be done in the hospital. So whenever he had a flare up, or whenever, his Crohn's disease, he was struggling with it, he had to go spend weeks almost at a time in the hospital. And so I love that you're providing something affordable, comfortable, and outpatient services that you don't have, that way you don't have to be in the hospital. You don't have to, if you're providing and checking a lot of boxes with that. So what do you need to get into creating something unique like this to provide patients with something different, just as beneficial, and that, as you mentioned, is affordable, is comfortable, and is very, you know, in the long term, has a lot of advantages for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we saw that there was a need, and we also were looking at some of the progression that's happened with these type of medications. So biologics are what we're mainly providing for patients. We do other therapies like immunotherapy, iron infusions, but the biologics are really groundbreaking and exploding in treatment options for these patients. So 20 years ago, patients may have been on non-steroidal anti-inflammatories or steroids, and that was really the only option when you had a flare. And these medications, which are complex proteins that are specifically designed to reduce inflammation and the inflammatory state, are given as a maintenance. So these treatments are done really every 4, 6, or 8 weeks, depending on the medication. Some are longer, every 6 months. But they're basically given as a maintenance, and they put people in a state of remission for the majority of the people that it works. So, you know, it changes how people manage the disease. It gives them freedom back. You know, it's a really significant change in what they know their disease to be because of the progress. And you know about these medications because you're seeing advertisement. You're seeing the ads that are popping up for Humira and Xeljanz and TBO. And the reason why they're popping up is because the manufacturers are really trying to get people to understand that you have options. And that's really a signal of how important this is, and really how this is reshaping the landscape for treatment for a lot of these patients. So we're really on the forefront of that. We're very excited to, you know, be the leader in this type of treatment in the area. And we've really set out to make it an exceptional experience. So my background is I'm an ER doctor, and I did that for 13 years, and I started an urgent care practice. And everything has been about making that experience of going to the hospital and being in a very, you know, a critical situation more pleasant. And so we did that in the urgent care, and we created this incredible practice in New York that was all about, you know, delivering service with empathy and making people feel great about it. And we were incredibly successful. So when we saw this opportunity to move into this additional space, we wanted to bring that same culture to the practice, and we're all about making people feel great while they're having this treatment that's changing their course of their illness. So the centers are all designed with patient comfort in mind, comfortable chairs, and you know, great design, and snacks, and Netflix, and you know, staff that really understands that, you know, this is something that is not fun for people, but it, you know, it's important. So we wanted to set the standard with a really different emphasis on patient experience.
Yeah, and that is something that, as you touch on, you know, there's a need for that. And for me personally, having a younger brother that had to go through so many infusions over the years, you know, you don't always have something that's catering to the patient's needs. So going and sitting in a hospital, you're just one of many people getting the treatment instead of catering to everything that, in his case, a young child would want and need with their treatment. So I love that concept of even adding Netflix and different things like that into it.
No, I mean, patients are being sort of thrown into this treatment without a lot of information. The doctor says you need to be on Remicade because your Crohn's disease is not being managed with what we've been treating. And then somebody says you need to go to this place. And there's really not a lot of interaction with the patient about what their options are. And so you kind of hit the nail on the head that patients need to know that this exists. They need to understand that you don't have to go to the hospital, that you don't have to have a home infusion, because that's also been what some people have been directed towards. And you can go somewhere that is beautiful and comfortable and clean and modern and have convenience. I mean, we specifically at Specialty Infusion are open late during the week so people can work and still come later. We have weekends are our busiest times because people have school or other commitments during the week. So, people have to understand that, number one, there's so many other treatment options now, but also when those treatment options are decided upon with your provider, that there's choices that you have. And that's really where we're starting to see a very big trend with our own practice. We currently have 6 offices around the metropolitan New York area and are expanding to Jersey, expanding within the area here. And we're starting to see patients referring patients. We're starting to see providers, from one major hospital group, whether it's NYU, talking to their colleagues at Mount Sinai and saying, hey, you should be sending your patients here. We've had a great experience, and it really provides a new option for people that the word is getting around. So it's very exciting. You talk about positive vibes, creating a medical practice and taking care of people is amazing. And then seeing it succeed and the positive effect of that becoming sort of a snowball is the ultimate experience of that, because that's what you really had gone out to do. And then you just see this natural progression of doing what you thought was right. And then people, seeing that and following that pattern. So it's been a really exciting 1.5 years since we started the practice. And we're very, very excited about the growth and opportunity to change the face of this type of medicine and really be groundbreaking in what we're doing. So we couldn't be happier with what's happening.
Oh yeah, this is incredible, and this just keeps getting better and better as the more we talk. I mean, I just love the fact that you're changing the game. You're changing medicine, you're changing treatment options, providing, more options for patients. So yes, you can still go to your hospital, as you mentioned, get your home infusions, but you can also go somewhere else that's comfortable. And to do this in just 1.5 years, I'd love to know the timeline from the moment you realized there was a need for this. Obviously, you've worked in medicine for several years, but what really led you to this point of being a co-founder of Specialty Infusion? And as you talk about the next steps, I mean, what more can we really expect moving forward as you continue to expand beyond New York, as you mentioned, into New Jersey, and continue to grow this? So take us through that timeline a little bit.
So when we began about 1.5 years ago, my partner, Lon Katz, is a pharmacist, and he's been very successful in retail pharmacy for years, and we started the urgent care together. And, he was really the person that I think at first identified the need for more outpatient infusion therapy. And I think that was from his expertise in pharmacy and, going to conferences and sort of seeing what's happening in this specialty pharmacy, which is mostly the group of medications that we're providing, was just really starting to take off. And so he and I came, together with the idea of creating this kind of within the model that we already had. So we put it in the adjacent space to our urgent care, and we wanted to, see if it made sense. And that simultaneously, what we realized is that the insurance companies were really starting to mandate patients to find outpatient alternatives. So it was a very fortuitous time to start the practice and start getting our feet wet in it. And then we started working with some of the largest, most expert providers in the New York area. So at Mount Sinai, the inflammatory bowel disease group there is probably one of the biggest in the country. And, we've started to take care of their patients. And once you start doing a good job, you start to see trust and repetition of referral. And then from there, started working with the other hospitals. And over the past year, expanded our footprint from the original 2 locations to 4 to 6. And now the plan is just to be strategic about where the need is most necessary. So trying to get to areas that are more underserved. We have an office that's in upstate, but there's people who have chronic illness that are well beyond Manhattan. A lot of people come into the city for their treatment, but they live in areas that are more remote. So we're trying to predict what makes sense for the patient need and also the provider needs. So, our growth has been a little bit of reactionary to what we found to be necessary. And then, just trying to use the resources to, make every step make sense from a business perspective.
Right. And I love that it's affordable, it's accessible, and it's good care. It's good treatment. And I think there's a lot of stigmas.
The priority.
Yes, and there's a lot of stigmas and stereotypes that you can't get all of those, that it has to be, as you mentioned, driving somewhere that's a farther distance or an inconvenience in location, something like that, whereas you're really providing everything. So do you guys offer this to a lot of insurances for any listeners that are curious? I mean, it's all for the patients that are having medical treatments for the diseases that I had mentioned. I mean, if you have MS, you most probably are insured, whether it's a private commercial insurance like Blue Cross or Cigna, or if it's a insurance like a Medicaid type of product. Perfect. So where can our listeners get more information on all the incredible things that you're doing to really change IV therapy?
So obviously our website is the first go-to. It's specialtyinfusion.com. And then from there, the process is very easy. If they're interested in getting their doctor to refer them to us, it's all online and digital forms. And we have an incredible staff. So I think it's important to highlight that when a patient is referred to us from their doctor, we take over all of the very difficult part of getting prior authorization. So in order to have the insurance guarantee payment, you have to have a approval from the insurance to undergo the treatment. And that's really critical because you can't expect patients to get stuck with thousands of dollars of hospital or insurance bills, because the infusion wasn't approved by them. And what our staff does is takes that responsibility off of the doctor's hands, and then it makes it easier for the providers. But from the patient side, we work tirelessly to make sure copay assistance are applied so that the out-of-pocket expenses for patients is essentially nothing. A lot of these manufacturers have special programs in order to subsidize if there was a deductible that wasn't met, for instance, for patients. They have an out-of-pocket responsibility, but these manufacturers see the value of getting the patients treated and are really partnering with them. And essentially what they do is provide money back to the patients. And our coordinators are working to make sure that is taken care of for every patient so that the out-of-pocket expenses is taken care of. So that's such an important part for the patients because everybody is very afraid that, I can feel better and this is going to help my illness, but I'm going to end up paying thousands of dollars because everything wasn't done with the best effort from the infusion center. So that's really critical. And we're really proud to be doing that on behalf of the patients because it really shouldn't be their responsibility if there is manufacturer subsidization and other alternatives for them. Our Instagram is actually very, very patient-centered for specialty infusion. It's at specialty_infusion. And of course, we want to educate people about what we do as a medical practice, but we also want to empower people about dealing with chronic illness, about sharing stories about how people are doing, and really just setting a conversation about being, healthy and dealing with this type of situation. So I encourage people to take a look at it and, just join the conversation and spread the word because I'm very proud. We're about to hit 1,000 followers in a short period of time. And that's not easy when you're talking about a medical.
Yes, exactly.
To get people to like and click and all those things. But we've really put together something that I think is unique. And I hope that people who have interest in this, like maybe yourself or your brother, take a look at it for a second and join the conversation.
Well, I do want to say, speaking on behalf of someone who watched her younger brother suffer through different medical treatments, trying to find the right one, Hamira, Ramicade, Stelara, thank you. I am so appreciative for the work that you're doing and to provide patients with some alternatives to the treatment that they're getting. So yourself, Elon Katz, your co-founder, you guys are doing some really groundbreaking things. It's incredible to see. And so I'm so thankful to have had you here on the show.